Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of JDM Masters, and today we are at Type 1 Spoon Workshop and we're going to be fitting some parts onto this Skyline GTR. It's a Nissan and Spoon is a Honda specialist, so what are we doing? Come join us. So today we're going to be explaining about the rigid collars that's being fitted to the Skyline GTR. Now, interestingly, Spoon is a Honda tuner which exclusively does parts and tuning. They've been racing for Honda much of their existence. But the rigid collar is probably the only part that you can buy for other cars that are not Hondas. In fact, they have these products for basically every type of model, including European cars, and it's very interesting. So let's have a look. I have a little nice brochure here. What is a rigid collar? Now, as the name actually implies, it's self-explanatory. It's a collar that is rigid, it's hard. And so this actually goes in between the subframe of the car and the body. So a little explanation for those of you who maybe may not be familiar with the chassis structure of the car. So there's a little display here, which we're going to have a look. It'll be quite interesting to explain. Imagine this is the underneath of the car. This little aluminum structure here is what holds the suspension and the arms, and you've got the wheel tire over here, and all these bolts are what links this frame onto the body. So the body is represented by this square block here, and this is the subframe. This one in particular is made of aluminium. From this hangs all of the arms and the suspension. For example, here would be a lower arm, and here on this structure here, you can see that it's a rear structure frame. And this is an important part of the chassis because it holds the geometry of the suspension, and therefore, if it is not straight, you get discrepancies on the left and the right. Now, why is this so? A little explanation which is in this booklet. Now, you can see here the production line of a vehicle as it is being assembled in the factory. A majority of cars today are assembled on a production line, and in a car manufacturing shop, it's all about productivity with no waste. So let's have a look at what happens when you have the body, which is suspended by a crane, held up mid-air, and the subframe, the suspension, the engine, all of it is added from below, as in like this picture. And so these cranes are actually holding the car, and it's not stiff, it's kind of moving about. As the body is moving through the production line, it's swaying back and forth, and therefore it's not going to be exactly centered into the holes of the body. So represented by this, for example, if you can see here, you can see that there is a little of a bit of clearance and a gap, and therefore when we have all four corners of this gap between the body and the subframe, it will settle in at maybe not precisely in the center. If you look here, you can actually see how there is actually quite a bit of clearance. Now, what's the reason of this? Why don't manufacturers make it precisely in the center? Because it will take a lot of time, and production speed is important in manufacturing cars, and just that slight difference can actually be offset by things like better alignment, and it doesn't actually really make that much of a difference to a normal driver. But if you're an enthusiast and you are a driving maniac and you want to get that precise feel and have your car, realizing its full potential, you want things exactly right in the center. It's the precision that is important. So the question is, how can a small piece of aluminium collar like this change the way your car feels on the road and the apparent stiffness and difference in handling? Let's have a look at this cutaway model. So the collar goes in between the subframe and the body. It's really simple, and as you are tightening it into the body, let's unloosen this for a bit. So let's say like that. Here you have little collars that are going into the groove of the subframe, and when it goes down, it actually centers the body onto the subframe. So here it's not moving, and here on this side, without the collar, you can see how it's loose, and therefore if it gets tightened, it's not going to be exactly in the center. So this is the apparent problem. You can see also here from this diagram that it explains that without the collars, there's actually a little bit of a gap. Now, some cars are designed with a 24mm bolt and some with 40mm bolts. And therefore, because of this surface flatness difference, it can actually be a little bit off-center. Now with these collars, it will be a perfect fit. And what happens is this angles over here just squeezed into the gap, filling up this gap, and it gets crushed in, squeezed down like that, and therefore it creates a perfect fit, which also contributes to a feeling of body rigidity. Because if everything is centered and it's squeezed in tight, the feeling that you get is going to be less vibration and going to be more accurate steering. So once we get it fitted on the car, and we're going to have a look downstairs now at the whole process and the meticulousness in how they fit it by Spoon mechanics themselves. We'll go for a test drive and see how it really feels.
Hey guys, this is Japonic from JDM Masters. So, we are gonna install the rigid collars today. Just before that, I want to give you my impressions on the car, how it feels before we install those. Of course, after installing, we are gonna learn more, but yeah, I don't even know what to expect now. I'm driving this car for like more than 9 months now. Let me tell you about the suspensions. Suspensions are Nitron R3, so 3-way suspensions. They're pretty good, pretty nice. So riding quality on this car is not bad with those suspensions and big strut bars and stuff. We will see how it will change after we install those. I don't even know what to expect, to be honest, right now. Does it feel loose a bit? It doesn't actually. I had a different 34 before. It was mostly stock 34. This is slightly tuned to 600 horsepower. You can understand the shake on the camera, I guess. It's not bad. It's not too soft. Actually, the suspensions are in the softest setting right now, since I'm not on track or I'm not doing toge anything. In the city center, it's mostly the softest adjustments. Let's do some pulls if we can, right there. Oh, I shouldn't get any other fines. I got fined yesterday. I got the police. He was speeding. They are making the car. They are making the roads. And I am only allowed to use the quarter of the speedometer. But I paid for the whole. I don't know. It doesn't make sense sometimes, right? So this road is a little bit bumpy. And let's see the camera's reaction to... It's good. It's good. It's not that jumpy or bumpy or not soft either. But we will see the difference after we install the rigid collars.
Okay. You got that feeling?
Yeah.
All right. One more time. I got it. So now we're going to begin the process of fitting the Spoon rigid collars onto the Skyline GTR subframe. And let's have a look. Here's the box that you'll get if you buy these Spoon rigid collars. And inside there are instructions, very conveniently, in Japanese, of course. If you don't read Japanese, fear not. If you're a home mechanic, you can read this. It's written in very proper English with clear instructions on how to fit the collars and what are the steps that you should take. But we have the great opportunity here to have it fitted by the Type 1 mechanics themselves. So we're going to show you the whole process. Let's go have a look. Which parts do you put it on? No? Yeah. And so we are now in the installation phase of the rigid collars into the subframe of the Skyline GTR. Now, in a subframe, you don't really have to remove the entire thing. As you can see, the mechanics are just simply removing the main bolt that holds the subframe to the body. And this is the part that we're going to put the thin aluminium but very effective collar in between the body and the subframe. And hopefully we will be able to see good results from the difference in the stiffness and the handling. So you can see now how the mechanic is carefully checking with a little mirror, you can't really see, just to check the clearance of the shim to see whether it's correctly positioned accurately underneath the body, and in between is a fine line, because the whole subframe doesn't actually need to be removed. It just needs to be centered slightly to fit those little collars in, and it's just fitting it delicately just to make sure that it gets into the center before tightening the bolts again. Now we'll probably have to go and run it for a while to let it set in, and so we're probably best to get an alignment after that. So the good thing is that the car already had a good alignment before. It was a good test of equal conditions. Now there is a gap between the lower frame, this is actually the stabilizer, and the body here. So it's in the loosened position, and we're going to start tightening it evenly left and right. And the last process will be to torque it according to spec. And it's very important to do this process because every bolt in the car, actually in any machinery, has a correct torque value. It needs to be carefully done by a very accurate torque wrench. And it's all skill of the mechanic to also do this. Let's have a look. These are the collars. They will be fitted in between the subframe and the body. And so basically this will go in, and as the bolts are tightened against the lower part, it will actually crush and form a depression, centering the subframe onto the body, where this process is not actually possible by manufacturing in the factory. So we're going to be talking with Jomoto-san, and he'll explain to us a little bit about the features. Jomoto-san, why is there this line?
これはね、
Yeah.
この車はサブフレームをスタッドボルトで止めてる。
I see.
だからスタッドボルトって長いから、これ30センチぐらい下ろさないとつけられないから、この車はこれを取ってこう入れる。だからほんの少し隙間が空けば入って。
So it depends on the model. For the Skyline GTR, you have to split it and lower the frame and connect it back and then tighten. Is it okay? Really? It's fine like that.
ここがこの細いところね、この細いところ、これがギャップに入る。
Ah, so this very thin groove will go into the gap of the body. I see.
センターには
Yes.
下から。
And it will just slowly go in like that.
で、これでスタートボルトと
Yes.
サブフレームのセンタリングはここに。
Interesting. Interesting. Very, very high grade industrial strength aluminum.
で、企業秘密だから。
Industry secret. Industry secret. What kind of grade? Probably used in aircraft. 現在から実際もらったんだよね。ST 線の。でもあれは使わないから使わないにして飾りだけで。So now the mechanic is carefully creating a gap in order to put the collar in between the subframe and the body. And you can see here that he's using this very interesting straight jack in order to support the diff. So it's being placed in the diff now, which is also connected to the subframe in order to hold it in place. As he's carefully adjusting the level. And once the collars are put in, he'll slowly tighten it a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right, and these are just really basic processes that is very common in automotive mechanics and also when fitting anything on a car. You want to make sure that the tightening forces on the left and the right are done slowly and as even as possible in order to get the highest accuracy, because it is all about the accuracy. And we go over to the front and we can see also the mechanic is doing the same thing. He has a high power jack, and this is a kind of workshop jack that is used usually to lower transmissions. And you can see now he's splitting the collar and fitting it on each side of the front main bolt subframe. And you can see now that he's carefully inserting the two halves of the collar into the front bolt, the main subframe, just pushing it in. And it's all about experience and feel and using a little pick and in order to get it into the right position. And this is very, very crucial because that thin piece of aluminum metal has to squeeze into the groove of the body. And you can see here he's also doing it also on the left and the right, bit by bit, slowly, both mechanics working in tandem to get this job done in actually quite an impressively short amount of time. Now on the Skyline GTR R34, there are these front diffusers and the rear diffusers, and so unfortunately that of course has to be removed in order to get access to the bolt. So it's taking a little bit more time. A lot of newer cars do have these kind of like under trays, but with the older cars, for example like the 90s Civic or whatever, it would be a lot easier. But is this a process that you could probably do at home yourself? And yes, if you have experience in mechanics and you want to try it at home, it is possible, but we recommend that you take very great care in adjusting the left and the right and making sure that those little grooves are inside and tightening it according to torque to spec. Otherwise, you're not going to get the best results. And one thing to note is once the collars are in, they will be squeezed into the center and crushed into place so that it maintains an exact center line of the subframe and the body. So if you kind of mess it up once, you're going to start all over again, buy a new set. So be careful. Now before fitting the collars, it is very important to put this copper grease, the same type that's used on brakes, in order to make it easy for it to fit in when the collars actually get into the body. So you can see now the mechanics applying grease, not too much, just with your finger. Kind of like that. And so let's have a look. So this is one half of the split collars that's spec'd for the Skyline GTR. And you can see that it's a really, really tight fit. He's using his fingers to carefully put the two halves from each side. There we go. There we go. He's using a very thin feeler to push it in ever so slightly to get that fine adjustment done. And then also trying to shift the subframe and get it just precisely in. Now for those of you who want to try this at home, take note of this process because it is very important to get it exactly in the center. All right, and now the rigid collars have been fitted into the car, and we're going to do the bounce test on the rubber mat again now. So Japonic, let's go.
Definitely feels different.
It feels different?
Yes.
Try it again, try it again. Okay, it's going to do it one more time, a little bit faster this time. What do you think?
I felt a bit softer but balanced. I don't know. I can't describe the feeling, but it feels better.
All right. So it's going to be the same as before we fitted the rigid collars. I'm going to keep my head straight and see if I can feel any difference in the way it moves. All right, here we go. First gear. Yeah, it did feel different. All right, I'm going to try it one more time. I'm not really convinced. Reverse. One more time. So there's a strange feeling of stability while sort of being softer. It's exactly what Japonic said.
It feels like a newer car. I don't know.
That's your kind of impression,
Yes.
feeling, right? If I were to break it down into precisely the movements, because so the rubber mat is only placed on one side of the car, so you actually feel one side of the car lifting up and going back down into the road surface again. And so before we fitted the rigid collars, there was a slight feeling of maybe the wheels or the body moving a little bit left to right just as it comes off the mat. But now it seems to just transfer its whole weight in one piece. My head feels like it doesn't really, it's really strange. It's very, very subtle, but it does feel different. I'm going to try one more time, back up again, just to confirm this feeling. So when you're driving a car, you do feel sensations through the back of your seat and mostly through your bottom. And though that forces are transferred upwards to your body and gives a sensation onto your head, which means if you feel that you're moving more in line with the car body, if that makes any sense at all, it does feel a little bit different. So we just tested it inside the Spoon workshop, and there seems to be a very, very interesting difference. So Jamoto-san, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
For helping us to fit the Spoon rigid collars. So this was done in collaboration with Spoon. We just want to explain a little bit of the difference between what is Spoon actually produces this product, but the brand name is called Rigid Collar.
Yes, we say rigid collar.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And,
How can we find these products?
we have products of almost car.
Okay.
Yeah, and include European cars.
Including European as well. So people can get it for their Porsche or the BMW?
Yes, of course.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. Please check our website, rigidcollar.jp.
Over here, the link.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We'll
Thank you
see
for coming.
again.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you.
So after putting this rigid collars, how does it feel? Can I feel the difference? Definitely yes. Definitely yes. It's like a newer car feeling, you know. I didn't think there was this much space to improve the feeling of the car, but it definitely feels better, smoother, and softer. Interesting. It doesn't feel completely stiff or hard or just too soft. It's not. It's just the way it should be. All those bumps. Feeling great. The feeling also I get is like the suspensions are doing their job and I can feel it more now. It's really hard to describe, but it definitely feels different. Perfecto.
So that was a conclusion. Okay, we're going to do the conclusion now. So guys, let us know in the comments what you think of this little process. If you'd like us to maybe, you know, put the rigid collar on other cars, maybe the EK9 over there, some European cars, and just to see how, you know, it would be interesting whether changes would affect one particular model to another. So until next time, that's all from us. Peace out.